Their political bullshit was going to get Mark Watney killed.
November 2035. The world was stunned when NASA Director Teddy Sanders announced that astronaut Mark Watney was killed. However, that shock was nothing compared to the further revelation that Watney was alive and stranded. In the coming months, the world united to bring Watney home. But what the world didn't know is that while NASA was working around the clock to find a solution, debates about how to save Watney had created a sharp divide that threatened rescue efforts. In time, this split would end one man's career, threaten more, and lead to a near catastrophic breakdown in the chain of command. Tonight, you'll hear this untold story of the Ares 3 rescue from the people who were there and the man who risked it all for what he believed was right. This is Mitch Henderson, former flight director for Hermes. Outspoken and direct, Henderson earned a reputation for being a straight shooter, fair but difficult. He's also been accused of rubbing some people the wrong way.
I'll be the first to admit this was a bad situation for everyone involved. I mean, this whole thing was just insane. NASA, the organisation that plans for everything, had never planned for this. 90% of being an astronaut is readiness training. Imagine a scenario, find a solution, and drill until you can solve it in your sleep. But no one predicted or even imagined that a piece of antenna would break off in a f***ing storm, impale an astronaut, cause an evac, and then leave one of our guys stranded 140 million miles away. So instead of focusing solely on getting Mark home, things went to shit. We got dragged into political manoeuvring from the get-go. What was the public going to think? How should we break the news to the press? And when we thought he was dead, we couldn't even search for his body without finding a congressional budget angle. What kind of bureaucratic shit is that? Man down, that's our priority. And I was going to do everything in my power to make sure it stayed our priority. Even if it meant disobeying a direct order, even if it meant the end of my career. This was about Mark, nothing else.
On November 13th, Dr. Theodore Sanders received the call he never wanted. They lost an astronaut under his command.
It was late when I got the call. Most of the country was sound asleep. Meanwhile, in some remote corner of the solar system, this man had given his life in the pursuit of something that he always loved, or so we thought. After dealing with my immediate duties, I booked the first flight to Chicago because I'll be damned if the parents were going to hear about this on television.
We all took the news hard. No one ever wants to have that happen. You know, we're all in this together. Mark was always in great spirits, but he was an absolute troublemaker. But you couldn't help but love the guy. He's the type of guy that could uplift team morale in a snap. We were amazed and overjoyed when we learned that Watney had survived. Then reality quickly sank in. We'd have to mount a rescue mission to Mars. We only had one ship, and it was heading back to Earth. So we immediately got to work trying to figure out how we're going to pull this off while making sure that we kept the rest of the crew safe. I understand the intense emotions of the situation, but that was even more reason to remain calm and collected. That's why we decided to not inform the crew that Mark was alive.
I mean, you want to talk about keeping the crew safe? And we're talking about an elite team of pilots, scientists, doctors, former military officers trained to confront some of the most dangerous situations known to mankind. And they deserve our complete trust and faith. We owe them the benefit of having all the facts that we have on the ground.
There's a shocker. Mitch Henderson's complaining. Here's the thing. We still had to figure out how to feed Mark. And Henderson's ranting wasn't doing anything to solve that. So I chose to ignore him and focus on the immediate problem. How to keep Mark from starving to death.
But what Teddy didn't realise is that I wasn't the only person pissed off. I was just the only one saying something about it. But behind closed doors, people were talking.
With an extremely limited supply of food, Mark Watney's situation became more dire with each passing day. NASA had to rush production of a supply probe to ensure Mark Watney would have the rations he needed to survive on Mars. However, with time running out, director Teddy Sanders was forced to make a dangerous decision, one that almost cost Watney his life.
Yeah, so Teddy decided to bypass testing and inspections on the probe because he was under pressure to deliver the world some good news. We missed something and the food probe went kaboom.
It was devastating. There's really no other word for how I felt that day.
When I saw that thing blow up, I thought that was it. I thought I had just condemned Mark Watney to a death sentence. He was going to starve to death, millions of miles away from home, and I was the reason.
Well, after that fuck-up, Teddy realised he had to protect himself as much as the crew. And with the whole world watching, he wasn't going to do anything remotely risky again. And whatever nerve he had, he lost that day.
Pardon my language, but that's bullshit. I don't have the luxury of shooting from the hip and being a cowboy. Accountability has to stop with somebody. And that's what he didn't get. You can call it self-preservation if you like, it doesn't matter. It's just how things are. And at the end of the day, somebody has to take responsibility for all these decisions. And that's me. I gambled. I lost. No more gambling. Protecting the crew of the Hermes became my top priority. I had no other choice. Where do I begin?
Rich Purnell is a weird kid. He's not quite living in the same world as you and me. And I say that as a compliment, but he's so lost in his own world that sometimes he lacks what people might call people skills.
Rich rules. I mean, seriously, this guy is everything you want from an astrodynamicist. Obsessive, focused, irreverent, without any hint of a political agenda at all. While everyone else was busy trying to come up with a diplomatic solution to the situation, Purnell poured himself into the math like a madman. I mean, he even took his vacation so he could ignore his other work and focus solely on our Watney problem. He had this crazy idea. Instead of docking the Hermes, what if we slingshot it around the Earth and hurtle it back at Mars where the crew could rendezvous with Mark?
This kid I'd never seen before, he waltzes into my office like he owns it. He makes me hold a stapler, starts running around me like one of my grandkids playing with a toy jet. Honest to God, I thought the team was pranking me. I promptly kicked Rich out. Turns out the kid was the real deal. He had this preposterous maneuver. It was brilliant thinking, but it was a plan that would jeopardize every astronaut I had in space and likely bring about the end of the Ares program. Decades of work, a second space race, 2 successful trips to Mars, and now they want me to risk it all. And Mitch couldn't fathom why I'd say no.
I get it just fine. I mean, he made the smart choice for the politics of it, but this wasn't his call. Louis was commanding the Hermes. This was her mission and her decision.
That was that. Teddy shelved the Purnell maneuver without a moment's hesitation. He just wasn't counting on what happened next. No one was.
That's when the faction finally decided it was time to ignore Teddy and put Plan B into action.
After scrapping the Purnell maneuver, Teddy Sanders issued a mandate barring anyone from informing the crew of this option. Henderson had enough. Henderson and the other members of the faction held a secret meeting to plan the leak. Comprised of coders and key positions in mission control, they figured out how to get the plans to the crew with no one knowing.
How many others? Well, that's between me and them. However, even outside our group, there were quite a few others sympathetic to our cause, and no one stepped in to stop us or told Teddy. I think that says it all. Once we'd confirmed Hermes had the plans, I tracked down Annie Montrose. I wanted to give her the heads up. As the public face of NASA, she was the one who was going to have to explain this to the public. I wanted to make sure if things went south, she'd be ready to keep Teddy from doing anything really stupid.
I always suspected it was bigger than Mitch. A lot of layers to what we do. It won't be easy for one person to bypass all the hurdles required to transmit such a message to the Hermes.
Well, I always knew there was more to this. After all, Mitch could barely figure out the company email, let alone hide a secret message.